He landed without fanfare, bowed his head where Britain taught him to, and then walked into a city his brother has only been allowed to dream about. Kiev wasn't a stop on a tour, it was a photograph with teeth. In Windsor World, it's the pictures that do the bruising. A young father in a flak jacket, under humming hospital lights. A prince at a ward door, listening like the cameras aren't there. You don't need a caption to read the subtext. One brother inside a war capital, the other not cleared to travel. That single, merciless word, aloud, does more damage in 5 letters than a month of anonymous briefings. Strip it back to the bones. 4 days on British soil after 5 months away. 1 quiet hour with the King at Clarence House, first time face-to-face in 19 months, no leaks, no table setting, just a father, a son, and the kind of conversation that makes a man stare at a wall afterward. A wreath laid at St. George's Chapel, where marble remembers what the living can't say out loud. And then east, fast, under the Invictus banner that isn't branding for Harry, it's oxygen. Kiev's invite came, London was informed, the security men did their sums, and he went. That's the Sussex playbook when the cause is veterans, ask, check, move. He doesn't borrow gravitas. He collects it from the people rebuilding their lives in physiotherapy rooms that smell of disinfectant and hot tea. Now hold that frame next to the one at Kensington. For 2 years William has been the senior royal voice on Ukraine, meeting families in church halls, talking with troops in Estonia and Poland, standing at podiums where the nouns are careful and the verbs are support and stand. He pushed to go further, the system said no. Not because his heart is wrong, but because the rules are built to keep the heir's bones out of harm's way and the crown's neutrality out of headlines. There are doors a future king cannot open for himself without the state unlocking them first. He walked right up to the line and stopped. Then his younger brother crossed it. If you don't think that stings, you haven't been paying attention since Eton. Heir and spare wasn't a joke in a memoir. It was the instruction manual, stamped on both boys at birth. William's life is timetables, red boxes, and the tyranny of clearance. Harry's is a private passport strapped to a public mission. One man submits a request and takes the answer, the other, no longer a working royal, still carrying a name that opens steel doors, can occasionally stand where the heir cannot. Titles shift, the physics doesn't. So was Harry wrong? That isn't the question adults ask. The thing in Kiev is real. Rehabilitation isn't a photo op, it's the long road after the news crews go home, sockets adjusted until they don't blister, a hand relearned through stubborn repetition, a mind coaxed away from a night that will never leave. If a prince can drag donors, surgeons, and political attention into rooms that need all 3, then harness him. 2 truths can live in 1 hour. Harry's presence was necessary, and for the palace, it was a headache. Not because of what he did, but because the image that travels around the world in 3 seconds collapses a complicated story into the laziest caption in the business. Action man versus crown in a cardigan. Allowed is the cruelest word in that caption. William's record isn't tea and bunting. He trained, he served. He has asked to go forward more than once and been told no by people whose job is to keep the line of succession intact. We've watched this film before. Afghanistan, anyone? Harry flew twice. William was kept back. The calculus then was national insurance. It is still national insurance. You can hate the mathematics and still admit why it exists. That won't stop the human ache when your brother gets the shot you wanted for the right reasons. Zoom the lens out and you see 2 weeks that tell you exactly who these men are now. In Britain, William and Catherine go. Village Hall, the tempo the late Queen set and perfected. Tea poured correctly, laughter that doesn't patronize, the Women's Institute in Sunningdale reading as a live transmission from the country's common sense. It looks gentle because it is. and because it works on people who pay council tax and remember ration books. Across a border, Harry keeps his own covenant. Show up where courage smells like disinfectant and rubber and a gym floor. Leave with fewer quotes and more names. War gives you no flattering angles. You go anyway. Inside the family, the silence is the roar. There was time for a father and a son to find 60 minutes. There wasn't time for brothers 8 miles apart to find 5. Maybe that's security. Maybe that's stubbornness. Maybe it's both, with a calendar jammed between them. Either way, the absence is the shape you can't stop seeing no matter how you tilt the frame. If you're William, you take the punch everyone insists isn't a punch and you keep to your lane. You don't freelance foreign policy, because you envied your brother's photograph. You don't overrule security, so a headline feels fair. Your staff understand that. You understand that. Pride doesn't. You've spent 2 years shaking the hands of people who left their homes with a suitcase and a prayer, talking to soldiers who stand for the rest of us, and now the loop that will outlive this week is your brother in Kiev while you tend the safer square. That's not failure. That's constraint. Constraints chafe. If you're Harry, you don't pretend your itinerary is a referendum on kith and kin. You stick to the work. You asked, you were invited, you went. The men and women who lost limbs and sleep don't care about court circulars. They care about eye contact and whether the program gets funded next quarter. You gave them a camera and a promise people can spend. You'll take the heat that comes with that. You always do. If you're the palace, you grip the table and ride out the cycle. You remind the serious outlets that the heir's movements are governed by advice, not appetite. You let cooler heads note that a private citizen can assume risks a sovereign in waiting never should. You feed nothing to the fuming machine. You stick to service and keep the feelings where they belong, behind doors that don't leak. There's a harder truth under the tabloid version. Ukraine isn't background scenery for a family soap. It is a country still burying its young. If a prince can pull the cameras back to rehab wards long after the front page fever breaks, let him. And let it also be true that a future king staying out of Kiev is not a deficit of courage. It is the price of the constitutional deal this country prefers to the other available options. Foreign policy belongs to elected hands. The crown's power is to convene, to comfort, to keep scale. Rails exist for a reason. Where does this leave the brothers? Not nearer. Single trips don't mend canyons. They harden stories. William's story to himself: duty says no when blood says go. Harry's: freedom lets him stand where his brother cannot, and then leaves him alone when the cars are gone and the night nurse checks vitals by torchlight. Both stories contain truth. Both scrape. Don't miss Catherine in the edges of the frame. When the air goes metallic with speculation, she adds weight where you need it. Clothes that say steady, a smile that reads as ease rather than performance, a hand on William's arm timed to the heartbeat of a room. She is the simplest proof that constitutional monarchy still has a practical grammar: turn up, listen properly, leave people feeling seen. In a hot week, she lowered the temperature without touching the thermostat. Memory matters here. The late Queen taught a 7-decade masterclass in the quiet arts: be seen when it helps, vanish when it heals, refuse to turn the nation's business into your mood. Both men, in wildly different keys, are trying to play that music. William keeps the work small and near because that's where constitutional monarchy still touches daily lives. Harry keeps his promise to a community that was his before the tabloids made him everyone's. When they play at once, the notes clash. Listen longer and you can hear the tune underneath. Be wary of the cartoon. Action Man versus Cautious Heir is a headline, not a map. One image doesn't carry a decade. Outcomes are slow. A veterans clinic funded, a prosthetics unit scaled, a Whitehall department nudged past fatigue, a public gently reminded that constancy is a national service in its own right. On that axis, both brothers can help, one at the lip of a war zone, one at the edge of a trestle table where a WI stalwart tells the truth in 10 words and a slice of sponge. They don't have to coordinate for the work to add up. It just does. So yes, the camera owned the day. It always does. It caught a younger son in a place his older brother couldn't go and invited the easiest reading available. Step back and the picture complicates. Two men trained for different roles, doing what those roles now allow. One stiffness hurts. One freedom isolates. The country they were born to serve needs both kinds of service, and it needs them delivered without tantrum. If you're listening for the only line that outlives the cycle, it isn't jealous, snub, or fury. It's the sentence the late Queen lived by and that both her grandsons, awkwardly and imperfectly, keep trying to remember: be seen when it helps, be quiet when it heals, and never forget that service is larger than you are. The rest, every hot take, every anonymous quote, every microscopic reading of fist, jawline, is commentary.